As we've experienced already during today's service, all things are in flux. All things are in the process of change. Some changes are unpredictable. Others are foreseeable because they occur in a pattern that has been observed from generation to generation. When we speak of change, we must speak too of dynamics, the interaction of elements that often produces unpredictable results. And yet, we speak of destiny as if there is some final stage that we reach, as if it has been foretold. Today, we'll explore the relationship between the dynamics of change and the idea of destiny. Probably many of you are familiar with stage theory, based on observations of people and institutions, that they go through a predictable series of stages in their growth process. In order to get certified to teach in public schools in Massachusetts 30 years ago, I needed to become familiar with Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development, which deals with how we human beings gradually come to acquire, construct, and use knowledge. Erik Erikson is best known for his theory on our psychosocial development, which again occurs in stages. Lawrence Kohlberg based his 6-step developmental stage theory of moral development on the work of Piaget. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs is based on a kind of stage theory. James Fowler's book, Stages of Faith, has, as the subtitle has it, the psychology of human development and the quest for meaning. Ever since I first came across the work of Maslow and Erikson, I've been fascinated by stage theory and have incorporated it into my ways of understanding human growth in its various forms. And I've wondered whether we've come to see the world in its various aspects, if that can be understood in this evolving way of growth from one stage to another. So today I'd like us to consider the role of change, of growth, of evolution, this time in the field of religion as a whole, to ask the question whether we can have such a thing as religion without divine revelation. For some people, that question has already been answered in a resounding no. No, the very reason that religion exists is to reveal truths from a supernatural realm. The word religion, for many in the United States, equates with the word Christianity. And Christianity is understood as having the purpose to worship Christ, the King, who has delivered us from eternal suffering, which would otherwise be our fate because of human inadequacy. And that's the end of the question. Others, though, would prefer that the question be left open to investigation, and then to undertake that investigation and to share with the world the products of that research. Such a one is Julian Huxley, the British biologist and ethicist, and once the president of the British Humanist Society. Huxley investigates the question of the purpose of religion from the point of view of science, especially in light of the theory of evolution. The name he gives to the product of his investigations is evolutionary humanism. I'd like to take some time this morning to introduce you to his thought and to ask you to consider it. If you consider yourself a humanist or an atheist, I'd like you to consider how his thought jibes with your own. If you are a theist of any persuasion, I invite you to consider whether his arguments provide you with a challenge you might want to respond to, or with a point of view that might illumine your understanding. And if you are agnostic, I ask you to consider whether his arguments are persuasive as you make your way forward on your voyage of spiritual discovery. Julian Huxley was born in 1887 into a family known for its intellectual accomplishments. His paternal grandfather was Thomas H. Huxley, a friend of Darwin and a proponent of the theory of evolution before that was a popular position to take. His great uncle was the poet Matthew Arnold. His brother was the writer Aldous Huxley, most of us know from the book Brave New World. And his half-brother was Andrew Huxley, who was a fellow biologist and a Nobel laureate. Julian Huxley, as we will see, was every inch the academic, but he understood, too, the importance of the personal when interacting with the largest questions of the meaning of existence. His book, Reason Without Revelation, first published in 1957, contains chapters such as Science and God, the naturalistic approach, a preliminary interpretation, comparative religion, psychology and religion, and developed religion. But in the midst of it all, he includes, with some explanation and even a bit of apology, a chapter that details his own struggles to make meaning out of life, including his struggles with what he labels a nervous breakdown. Even then, though, he does not abandon his scientific detached stance completely, as he titles the chapter Personalia. As a scientist, Huxley believes in defining his terms. As a human being, he confesses to having certain beliefs. One of the great enjoyments in reading this book comes about from following his attempts to combine the two, formulating a humanist position which he believes provides the only conscionable way forward for a thinking, educated individual. He, like all of us, was a product of his time to some extent, and in large measure does a good job in identifying and understanding this. Some things are beyond him, though. He uses the term man when referring to humanity, and almost invariably uses the masculine pronoun when universalizing. In order to capture the flavor of his personality and time, I will quote him directly and let you make what allowances you will. When I think that gets too cumbersome, I'll just use the term humanity instead of the term man. And in order to exhort his position, I will sometimes use the second person plural as the most fitting pronoun. Early on, he sets the stage this way. What then do I believe? I believe, in the first instance, that it is necessary to believe something. Complete skepticism does not work. On the other hand, I believe equally strongly that it is always undesirable and often harmful to believe without proper evidence. How tragically we are coming to learn that lesson as a nation today. What then, he asks, is religion? It is a way of life. It is a way of life which follows necessarily from a man's holding certain things in reverence, from his feeling and believing them to be sacred. And those things which are held sacred by religion primarily concern human destiny and the forces with which that destiny comes into contact. With this as a background, then, it should not come as a surprise that he cannot get himself to believe in a so-called personal God. It seems to me quite clear, he says, that the idea of personality in God or in any supernatural beings has been put there by man. I disbelieve in a personal God in any sense in which that term is normally used. As for any pretended knowledge about the Last Judgment or the conditions for existence in purgatory, it could be disregarded for what it is, mythology from a racial childhood, and left to die a natural death. Something which causes believers to pay money to priests for the supposed benefits of souls in another world? No. And he says that many other such ideas are merely the expression of man's deep desire and longing for a continuation of life after death for himself and those he loves. The desire is real enough, the longing deep enough, But alas, desire and longing, as we all know, in regard to earthly happiness, are not sufficient reasons for the existence of what is desired or longed for. If it were, there would be no such thing as a broken heart. What Huxley is interested in, and what I submit most of us are interested in, is what we call reality, and what place religious belief has in helping us to understand, confront, and sometimes cope with reality. He includes in his understanding of reality these things: the permanent facts of human existence: birth, marriage, reproduction, and death, suffering, mutual aid, comradeship, physical and moral growth. Reality also includes the facts of spiritual life. We know that there is such a thing as wrongdoing, what Christians call sin, that there is a desire to be in right relations with others, a desire to be absolved or forgiven when we know that we have transgressed, and the peace that comes when we feel accepted, once again in right relations with others. He calls those the facts of the spiritual life. Huxley calls human ideals like truth and virtue and beauty facts, the kind of facts that transcend the concrete and always reveal further goals. Now we're getting to the idea of destiny. Beyond where we are at the present moment. There are facts and forces of nature outside and apart from us, myriads of living things, the positions of man on a little planet in one of a million suns, the facts and laws of motion, matter, and energy and all their manifestations, the history of life. Reality includes them as they are related to human destiny. And it includes them as held together against the cosmic background by a spirit of awe or reverence. Reality includes all this, he says, if not in a sacred aspect, at least in association with an outlook which finds reverence and finds holiness in reality. And it includes a kind of unified whole as an organized system of thought. If this seems to be an attempt to capture the essence of paganism and Buddhism and Taoism, it's because it is, I think, although not consciously so. Our human personality is organized in such a way that we conceptualize reality in this way and seek a way to understand it, relate to it, and interact with it in a way that is meaningful to us. If we do that successfully, it brings to us a healthy outlook, which leads to a healthy spiritual life. And all of this, of what Huxley calls reality, is in relationship to what he calls destiny. Why does a scientist use such a term? Remember that this particular scientist is trying to make a bridge from the perspective of the scientific method to understand the religious search as a product of what it means to be human. There's a scientific method, there's a religious search, and together they comprise what it means to be human. I'll quote him at some length here for the simple reason that I haven't been able to say what he says any better. All religions are organs of man in society for dealing with the problem of destiny on the one hand and the sense of the sacred on the other. If you like to combine the two, you can say that religion attempts to deal with the problem of destiny considered in the light of its essential sacredness and inevitable mystery. Destiny confronts us in particular events of our individual lives: sickness, falling in love, bereavement, death, good or ill fortune. It is involved in the ordering of our personal experience on earth and the great question mark of our continuance after death. In national guise, it confronts us through war or hardship or social evil that makes us ashamed. Finally, destiny extends beyond nation to humanity at large, and beyond humanity to all of nature. Destiny confronts us in our ideals and in our shortcomings, our aspirations and our sins, in our questioning thoughts about what is most comprehensive and most enduring, and about all that remains unknown. In the moral sphere, Huxley has this to say: destiny is apprehended in the confrontation of what is actually true right now, measured against unrealized possibility, what we can do right now to change the future. Destiny exists in our sense of guilt when measured against our sense of sacredness, and destiny is apprehended in the sense of our imperfections measured against the sense of our perfectibility. His goal, it appears, is to organize scientific knowledge in such a way as to make it relevant to these ideas about destiny. This will lead to what he calls a naturalistic belief system. This seeks to resolve the conflict between science and religion. The conflict, he believes, is the result of competition. The competition is between two dominant types of cultural entity: the God hypothesis, organized on the basis of mythical thinking, and the naturalistic hypothesis, organized on the basis of the scientific method. Huxley's analysis starts with what he calls primitive religions, which place a high value on the powers of magic to change the course of reality from things as they are to things as the practitioners wish them to be. An advance from this, he says, is what he referred to and what we've just described as the God hypothesis. He finds both unsatisfactory for the same reason. They appear to be based on well-known psychological tendency to projection. When acting on the magical hypothesis, human beings project sacred power into phenomena, into some external object or event, including rituals and forms of words. On the God hypothesis, we project the sacred power behind phenomena and clothe it in a garb of personality. Hypotheses, he says, are valuable and necessary instruments of the human mind for its dual task of adding to and organizing its knowledge, but they become dangerous when they're erected into absolute affirmations or dogma, and pernicious when they claim immunity from constant testing against fact. Blind faith, in other words. Certain things, he believes, make the time right for a naturalistic religion, for an evolutionary humanism. The discoveries of physiology, general biology, and psychology make a naturalistic hypothesis not only desirable, but in his thinking, inevitable and necessary. In this, there is no room for the supernatural, and the spiritual forces at work in the cosmos are seen as much a part of nature as the material forces. Spiritual forces, material forces, all part of nature. The spiritual forces, he maintains, are one particular product of mental activity in the broad sense, and are seen to have increased in intensity and importance during the course of cosmic time. This, of course, denies the basic nature of our relationship with everything around us, that it's dualistic, subject-object. Instead, he says it's monistic. We are part and parcel of the natural world. Our thinking apparatus, our sense organs, our ability to feel are all part of the natural world. The spirit which flows through us flows through everything, but nothing is static. All is in the process of evolving. Creation is happening here and now. Truth is not revealed once and for all, but has to be progressively discovered. It's scientific discovery, he says, of the first magnitude. This is evolutionary naturalism, and this monistic evolutionary hypothesis best meets the known facts. In light of such a view, religions like sciences or philosophies are creations of man, and gods are the product of the human mind just as much as scientific laws of nature. Both gods and scientific generalizations must be derived from experience and must have some basis in reality. The questions are, how much of a basis? How far do they respond to reality? How accurately do they embody experience? The laws of nature did not exist as such before men began scientific investigations. What existed was a welter of natural events, and the laws of nature are constructions of human thought which attempt to give a comprehensible general idea of how those events operate. In a similar way, gods did not exist as such before men built up their religious systems. What existed was a clash of natural forces, physical and spiritual, including those of the human mind. And the gods are attempts to give a comprehensive formula to these forces of destiny. You are part of reality in which and through which the cosmic process has become conscious and begun to comprehend itself. Your supreme task is to increase that cosmic comprehension and to apply it as fully as possible to the course of events. Your role is to discover your destiny as an agent of the evolutionary process in order to fulfill it more adequately. This is a practical task. So this strange universe into which we are born as a proper object both of awe and wondering love and of intellectual curiosity. Realize that both your wonder and your curiosity, like those of any other human being, can be of significance and value in the universe. Restore your sense of unity with nature. Be a partner with nature. Participate in the external world in the process of generating awareness and creating values. Have faith in the possibilities of being human here and now, a partner to creation. Will it be so? Only if we make it so.